Hey, what's up? Welcome back. In this episode, you're going to learn all about usage-based or metered billing. We're working on building out an application for helping people promote their YouTube videos, and when they want to automatically generate a suggestion using OpenAI under the hood, what we want to do is collect payment for their suggestion. So in the case of OpenAI, you have to pay based on like the number of tokens that are being passed around. And so what we want to do is sort of match our pricing model to the value that we're adding. And so what I want to do is collect a subscription fee for my service and then also charge an amount on top of that that will be for the tokens that people are using or generating, so that someone doesn't come in here, use a bunch of the API and rack up my bill. So we're going to build out this usage or meter-based billing. So at this point right now, we've got a very simple Rails application. It's got authentication with devise. You can log in, sign up, whatever. We've got other videos on this channel. If you haven't seen them before, go check out some of the authentication videos. But in this episode, we're going to set up our payment system. So the first thing we want to do is add a pricing button here that's going to show a pricing page. All right, so on this pricing page, people will be able to say sign up. And if they say sign up, that will redirect them through the sign up flow so that we can create a Stripe customer. And then it'll ultimately redirect them out to Stripe checkout, where we will sign up for a subscription that's going to have some flat amount each month, plus it'll tell them how much it's going to cost per token. So I'm thinking, I don't know, some $20 a month plus 7 cents per token, or 7 cents per 1,000 tokens. That's kind of like, if we look at OpenAI, the pricing on here for each of these models, the price is a little bit different. So this was the one that I was kind of matching it on, which is 6 cents per 1,000 tokens. So we'll do something similar where it's based on the number of tokens. So maybe it's 7 cents per 1,000 tokens plus $20 a month. And the way that we're going to set this up is all right, so let's just jump into some code. So Rails G controller pricings, we need a pricing controller. It's going to have a show page. That's where we're actually going to show like the pricing page. So we'll just create that there. And pricing show. On the pricing page here, what I'm going to do is actually use Tailwind UI and grab their pricing component, because, yeah, these pricing pages, oh wow, I think this might actually be new. It's got the whole pricing page, not just a component. Okay, we just need, wow, these are really nice. Okay, in our use case, we're just going to have a single, okay, yeah, so we're going to have something similar to this, where it's going to be a split panel, this split one, which I kind of like, because here we could say something like $20 a month plus 7 cents per 1,000 tokens or something. And this gives us a lot of the same content. So I'm just going to copy all of that HTML and drop that in here. Wow, that's a lot of HTML. All right, so I've already got some of these plugins installed. This is really just going to get us sort of started. So let's jump over to our routes and add in, let's see, we're going to say resource pricing. And now if we come back over here, we should be able to go to /pricing. And let's see. Okay, so we don't have that. Okay, so I think what we want to do is have our pricing controller. We have a couple different layouts here. So let's say we want the pricing page to use the marketing layout, I think. And we don't want this top bar. So we're going to start, okay, so let's start ripping out some of these pieces here. So we're going to go to pricing show. And I don't want, okay, so I know I don't want this header. Probably don't want this. We don't need any of the navigation stuff. So I think we can just remove this entire div, and let's see where we end up. Okay, so take control of your team. This is going to be something like take control of your your promotion or something. And we've already got a footer, so we don't need double footers here. So I'm just going to grab the footer and delete all of that. Okay, we have this call to action section at the bottom, boost your productivity, sign up. So this is all just like get started stuff. So start building for free. And okay, so we'll have to go through and update all the copy, but basically we want this Get Started Today button and this Sign Up for Free button to both go to the checkout page, basically. And so what we're going to do here is let's update some of the copy. Let's see. This mobile menu, I don't think we actually are going to have a mobile menu. Yeah, so we can remove the mobile menu. All right. That was all hidden. And okay. All right. So take control of your pricing. Okay, so I don't actually know if it's going to have a free plan or not, but let's just find this setup fee thing. So this, instead of calling this the setup fee, we're going to call this like per month, and we'll just say it's $20 per month. And then here we're going to say 0.07 per 1,000 tokens. And we'll have to explain what that means. Like, so $20 a month plus 7 cents a token. And now when we click on this Get Started Today button, that's down at the bottom. This Get Started Today. This should be a link that brings us to checkout. All right, so at this point, because again, we only have like one pricing level, we should be able to just redirect to checkout and have this work. And then try Workflow Lite for free. I'm just going to remove that link. So when we say Get Started Today, that redirects us to checkout. We'll just generate a new controller called Checkouts, and this will just be the show route for checkouts is going to create the checkout session and redirect us to Stripe checkout. So we'll jump in here. And this is going to say session is, checkout session is Stripe checkout session.create. The mode is subscription. The success URL, we want them to come back to the dashboard, and the cancel URL should come back to the pricing page, or maybe the root URL. And then let's see. We're going to have some line items, and there's going to be 2 line items. One of them, the first one, is going to be the price for the recurring amount that's going to happen every month. That's the flat amount. And the second one is going to be the usage-based price. Okay, so this is going to be our like flat rate per month. And then this is our usage-based price of like 0.07 per 1K tokens. All right, so, and then after this, we can say redirect to checkout session.url. See other, but we need to allow other host true. And all right, so we've got this. We also want to have a user, or I'm sorry, a Stripe customer. We want to have a Stripe customer. And so in order to have a Stripe customer, I want to create the customer when someone first signs up and then just always have a Stripe customer. So what we could do is here, we could check to see, one option would be to like, if the user is logged in, then use their Stripe customer ID. Otherwise, just pass without the customer, and Stripe will create a customer object for us. But I'm not sure. Yeah, like I think we want to just force people to be signed up before we redirect them. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, then we can email them and try to like enter them into a drip campaign. We can promote to them later. Number two, then everyone will get a Stripe customer ID the same way every time. So I think what I'm going to do is actually say before action authenticate user, so that people have to be logged in before they can see this route. And so let's say someone clicks on that sign up button, they try to go to checkout, that's going to fail and redirect them to sign up. And then after they sign up, they should be redirected back to checkout, which should take them through the payment flow, hopefully, fingers crossed, and then end up Yeah, okay. So let's go to the dashboard. I've got, in test mode, I've got promo tokens here. I've got a price for promo tokens. Right now, I said per unit per month, but it's actually like per 1,000 units per month, but whatever. So I'll just copy this. And then this is going to be our usage-based price. So yeah, this is going to be the amount that we want to charge there. And then the flat rate per month is going to be some other thing where we might have a promo. Let's just create a new product that's going to be like promo subscription or something. And we will create this as standard pricing, $20, recurring monthly. If you were going to create the usage-based price, you click on this usage is metered thing. The type I picked was sum the usage values at the end of the period, and I'll talk about the why in just a little bit. So we're going to save the product and copy this ID here. And this is all just test mode. When I go to live mode, I'm going to go through the entire Stripe Atlas process to like sign up for a brand new account and create an entity and whatever. But right now I'm just kind of like hacking out the idea. And so, okay, so we've got our prices. We have some mode, success, cancel, etc. Now what I want to do is just see if this thing is going to work. No. Yeah, so, no, okay, so routes, we need to add resource checkout. Okay, refresh. Okay, so this did redirect me back to user sign in. So, I can't remember what I signed up with. Okay, uninitialized constant Stripe. Okay, so we need to install Stripe, bundle add Stripe. And then what I'm going to do is I need to open up my my credentials file and set my API keys. So I'm going to go to the dashboard again and go to developers, API keys. I dropped in my Stripe secret key. Now I'm going to open up config initializers stripe.rb and say stripe.api key is rails.application.credentials.stripe. And I think I just called it secret. And now if we restart the server, all right, so now what's happening is after we went to the checkout, we were logged in. So I want to log out and then go back to this checkout route. And you'll notice that we're redirected back to the sign in, but if we sign in, rather than being redirected back to /checkout, we're just being redirected back to the root. I know this is kind of nasty. I've got like an alert in the application HTML, but what we want to do instead is we need to persist where the user was. And there's a couple of different Stack Overflow posts about this. One of them is here, and it talks about how we want to store the location in the application controller. So in application controller here, what we're going to do is write a couple different methods. So we can actually just grab these and talk about them. So there's two methods here that we will need in order to store the user's location. The first is the actual method to store the location. This is going to act as a before filter on most methods. So in fact, like we want to say something like before action store user location, bang. And this is going to store the location for the user using the full path of the request. Now, if the request is a GET request, then we don't want it to be stored because this is not an idempotent request according to the Stack Overflow post. But this is like the one that I care about is /checkout. So I'm actually going to remove that and just call that fine for now. The other ones that we don't want to include is any devise controllers because you might end up in an infinite loop, or any AJAX requests because you might have weird behavior. Now this storable location method becomes in handy when you are filtering out the before action. So we're going to say we only want to execute that before action if it's a storable location. So we're going to say if storable location, and now I believe we should have this location for the user. Now the last piece is that we need to override this method after sign in path for resource or scope. And so we can just grab this and drop it in the application controller, head back over here, refresh the page, and this storable, that should have been storable location. All right, refresh the page. Okay, so now let's log out And let's go to /checkout. Okay, now we're asked to sign back in. Okay, so what's happening? Let's look at the request logs. Redirected to here. So we are being redirected to checkout, but it's not working because of... It's not working because of Turbo, I bet. So what's happening is if we open up the logs here and we say start your trial, that is getting checkout, which is redirecting us to Stripe checkout. But in the preview, it's failing to load because we're being redirected using Turbo. So we need to go to our controller, or let's go to our view for devise registrations. We'll go to the form and we're going to turn off Turbo. Data Turbo is false. We're going to go to our user or our session new inside of devise and make this one false also. Data Turbo false, so that if we are logging in, we're redirected. Okay, and look at that. We are redirected. And here we see, okay, now we see this is the amount that we're subscribing for. And then we also see the promo tokens. That is going to be 7 cents a token. If we click on subscribe, we'll be subscribed to this. And because we didn't pass a customer in, this is creating a new customer. But we want to create the customer when the user first signs up. So we're getting closer, but let's head back out and do a couple more pieces here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to store the Stripe customer ID on the user. So say Rails G migration, add customer ID to users, customer ID. I guess we should call it the Stripe customer ID. And that's going to be a string. And that should work just fine. So we'll open up users controller. Oops. Add Stripe cus. Okay, so here we have the Stripe customer ID. And it's a string. Okay, Rails DB migrate. Okay, so now when we first sign up, we want to ensure that there is a Stripe customer. So I'm going to add a new after commit on create do if, or actually just after commit. Every time we commit, we'll just check to make sure we have a Stripe customer ID. So return if Stripe customer ID is present. Otherwise, we want to create a new Stripe customer. And this is going to give us Stripe customer. And we're going to say update with the Stripe customer ID. Okay, this is good, I think. Yeah, that should be good. Now, the other thing that I want to do is when we're creating the customer, I'm actually going to make this called params. And by default, we'll set them to email as email. But if rails.env is development, then I want to set params test clock is equal to test, or yeah, Stripe test helpers test clock dot create at frozen time dot now. And I think that should create a test clock for us that we can use to transition through time. This is really cool. And we want that to be the ID of the test clock. Okay, so hopefully that works. I think it should. The way that we can test this out is we can go into the Rails console and just find the user and say u is user.last, u.touch, and that should that will cause it to to run the commit callback, and that commit callback will execute. But we got some error, so it looks like we got this Stripe customer ID. And is that in there? So so now U has a Stripe customer ID. I don't know why we haven't this unexpected return though. Oh, return if. So yeah, I guess we don't want to return out of a block. Maybe we can just say like, okay. So test2 at example.com. All right, welcome. You successfully signed up, and we don't have any errors back here. And we should now have this user.last, and that should have a Stripe customer ID, and it does. So now what we're going to do is go back to our checkouts controller, and inside of the checkout session, we're going to pass the customer is current user.stripe customer ID. We know the current user is here and that they have a Stripe customer ID because they just were forced to go sign up, and when they sign up, it creates a Stripe customer for them. So now they should be able to redirect. So if we were to log out now and go to /pricing, if we click on this button to get started today, we're redirected to sign up, or we're redirected to sign in. I guess we probably want to redirect them to sign up maybe, or maybe this is clear enough. Start your free trial. And then we can say, okay, test 3 at example.com. Okay, we're redirected to Stripe checkout. They have to go through this whole process. Notice that their email address is filled in. That's because we're using that Stripe customer that we just passed along. Okay. Okay, now when we subscribe, there's going to be some events that fire. We're not yet handling those, but we need to. So I'm going to click on subscribe, and we'll come back and figure that out in a minute. All right, and we were redirected back to the dashboard, so that's cool. We have like a sign up flow. Now we need to have the actual provisioning flow. So we need some other object now. Okay, so now we want to keep track of all the subscriptions for a given customer. So we're going to say, we're going to generate a new model called a subscription. And this is going to have reference to the user. And it's going to have the Stripe subscription ID. It's also going to have the Stripe, maybe we'll just call it the fixed price ID, and the usage. Okay, so when we're working with a subscription that has multiple subscription items, like we are in this case, we might want to keep track of the price so that we know what like level they're at. In this case, there's only one level. We're only going to have this $20 a month. But if we, in the future, wanted to have, $10 a month and $20 a month and $50 a month, then we'll want to know at which of those tiers they're in. And so this is why we want to keep track of the price ID that's related to the fixed amount that they're paying each month. That tells us like what tier they're in. Secondarily, we also want to keep track of the subscription item, which is not the price ID, the subscription item for the usage, because we need the subscription item in order to report usage. Every time that someone creates a suggestion, we're going to be creating these usage records. And so I think we're actually going to we want to keep track of the fixed price ID, and we want to keep track of the usage, let's say usage price ID. And we're also going to keep track of the usage subscription item ID. That's a long name, but I think it's fine because that is a really critical and important piece of information as part of the subscription. We're also going to maintain a status, and what else would we want on here? I think that's it for now. So we're going to create this new subscription, and let's see. Let's look at the migration before we migrate, just to make sure that everything looks good. So the subscription, it has to have all of this stuff. Okay. I think it's really important that we have this. The status is okay if it's null to start, but okay. All right. I think this is fine. Okay. So Rails DB migrate. Okay. So the next piece of the puzzle is that we need to know when these subscriptions are starting. And so we need to handle some webhooks. So we've already got a webhooks controller here, and this is coming in for the YouTube webhook events. We also need to handle events that are going to now come from Stripe. And so now we have a situation where our webhooks controller is only really doing things with YouTube events, but it now needs to also handle notifications from Stripe. So the reason I called this one a YouTube event is because the body of a YouTube event is coming in as XML. It's like this Atom feed thing. And so when we're talking about JSON, we want, which is the format that we're going to receive from Stripe, we want maybe a different event type. So I'm going to say Rails G model event, and this is going to have data that is JSON, and it's also going to have a status. It's also going to have any like errors, processing errors, text, and I'm hesitant, but I'm considering storing the event type at the top level event, but I think we can just parse it out of data. The nice thing is then we'll be able to see it in the list, but whatever. This is fine. Yeah, we're also going to want a job to process these. So Rails G job event, like handle event. Okay. Let's actually take a look at this and make sure it looks good. Okay, it's got the data, the status, processing errors. You know what? Let's also track the source, because I don't know, we might have JSON events that come from other sources also, and we'll want to keep that on the event object too. So now what we can do is open up routes and go to our webhooks and say we actually want this to be a little bit more fancy. So yeah, we're gonna keep the YouTube one the same, but we're gonna add collection do post for Stripe or for /source, and that will give us a dynamic. That should give us like a dynamic thing. So now if we do like /webhooks/Stripe, source will be populated with Stripe inside of the controller action. All right, now let's go back into our webhooks controller and say if the params source is Stripe, then we're going to say event.create source is params, or maybe if it has a source, .present, then event.create source is params source, data is just the params, and then we're going to say event handler job.perform later for the event, and return. And we'll just render JSON of like status. Okay. All right, so now we're able to handle JSON webhook events, and then this one is going to be handle Atom notifications from hubbub. I probably should have named this like JSON event and this Atom event or something, but whatever. And also at the end of the day, we probably could have forked based on the source and just held all of the raw data in the request, but I think this is fine for now. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to fire up the Stripe CLI and have it forward those events into our local running webhook server. So I'm going to open up my proc file. So inside my proc file, every time I start up bin dev, I want it to start this Stripe CLI, Stripe listen forward to localhost 3000 /webhooks/Stripe. And that should, I think that should work. So now I can restart my server with bin dev, and we'll notice that, whoops, what happened here? Missing the action key on routes definition. Oh, routes. Okay, so this is also going to go to webhooks create. Okay, so look at our output here. You'll notice that there's a new process called Stripe. It's ready, and it tells us this is our webhook signing secret. We're going to want this if we're going to verify webhook signing, the webhook signing requests. For now, I'm not going to deal with that, and we'll just assume that it's up and running. So now what happens is we're going to go back through the flow. Rails DB migrate. T.source is source. Oh, it should have been in string. Create events. T.string. Rails DB migrate. Actually, Rails DB rollback. One other thing I want to do is set the status default to 0. Rails DB migrate. Okay, event. Now we're going to have this YouTube event. We're going to grab the same sort of status here. Okay. Okay, so now if we have our Rails server running, we're going to go to the pricing page. Actually, let's open up our root or marketing dashboard, and let's add a new thing here called pricing. If we click on pricing, we're brought to this page. I don't know, we might want to swap out the header there. It looks a little bit odd how close the bottom of this line is. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is click on Get Started. We're redirected here. Now we're going to sign up for a brand new account. So we are going to say, start your free trial, test4@example.com. And now we should be redirected to checkout. We are. Okay, so now let's look in the server logs and see if we're getting any events in here. Okay, we are. Event handler job. Did you mean handle event job? I did. So in our webhooks, so events are already coming in. So handle event job. That's where we want it to go. So now if I say, let's sign up with this 4242 card. Subscribe. Now we should get events firing into our webhook handler as this finishes processing. Okay, so we've got events coming in. It looks like those might actually be getting processed. So if we look at the handle event job, right now it doesn't actually do anything, right? So this should be taking in an event and doing something with it. But right now it's not actually doing anything. It's just kind of like posting, and filling it in. So let's go look in the Rails console at our new events that have been populated, event.last, and we'll see all the data about the event. This is really cool. So you'll notice too that all of the event statuses here are still pending. That's because inside of our background job to handle the event, we're going to update the status from pending to processing and then ultimately process. So right when an event comes in here, we'll say event.update status is processing. Then we're going to do a bunch of stuff, and then we're going to say rescue event.update status is failed. I can't remember what the status actually is. Event error. Yeah, it is error. And then the processing errors are e.message. Sure. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to say event.update status is processed. And then in the middle here, we're actually going to say like handle event, which depending on the event type, etc., and the source. So then we might say something like case event.source, and when it's Stripe, handle the Stripe event. Else like raise unknown event source, and then we can say handle Stripe event. And the Stripe event, it's the nice thing about handling the Stripe event, or what we're doing here is we're basically building up like sort of a route, like this concept of routing the event. So we have, we're doing some setup. We're going to actually execute the handling of the event. We're marking it as processed. If anything fails during that whole thing, we're going to mark the event as the processing of the event as failed and store those processing errors. And then inside of handling the event, we're sort of routing it. So if you could imagine that if we wanted to handle events from Twitter or from GitHub or Discord or these other places, then we can handle those in a similar way, but we would have handle Discord event, handle GitHub event, handle whatever event. And now inside of the handle Stripe event, we're going to say, based on the event.data.type, if it's checkout.session.completed, or if it's actually, we're going to use just customer.subscription.created. And for now, we're going to handle the subscription created event. Handle subscription created event. So what this is going to do is this will find the user. So we're going to find them by the Stripe customer ID. That looks pretty close. Let's actually pull out the subscription. So the payload of this event is going to be a subscription object, but it's not actually going to have everything that we need. So let's actually look at the data here. So event dot, how many did we get? We got 15 events. So what we want to do, event.all.map, we want to find the one that is customer.subscription.created. So e.data type, let's print out their types, and then let's say event.all.map, or I guess dot find event.type is equal to customer.subscription.created. So this is super inefficient, right? Like this query here, I'm saying event.all, that's loading every single event into memory, and then I'm using this array method .find. So you would not do this in practice. Instead, you would look up, how do you do a query into the JSON field? This is not something that I'm super familiar with. Maybe it'd be kind of fun. Let's do a little detour. Query Rails, query JSON field with Rails active record. It's just going to be some where clause where we can use the JSON format. Okay, so here we go. Let's say like event.where, and then we're going to pass in something, and it's going to look interesting. So it's going to be something like event.where data. So data is the property, like that's the column, and then I guess this is going to be, is this how we point at the key? Okay, so maybe we can point in like this, point at this single quoted string. Do we need the double arrow here? We got the double arrow, and then we want to like reach into data object ID, or no, data object inside of the object here. It's going to have, I don't even know. Let's see. So data type. So inside of the, actually not object, just type. And that should be equal to question mark, where the question mark is actually customer.subscription.created, and it failed. Okay, so let's find this again. And then where is this thing buried? Okay, so it's not inside of, is it not inside of data? Oh, it's just at the top level. So this should just be data dash type, like this. Oh, sweet. Okay. So this is the JSON query. So data pointing at this arrow with the key type, and then the question mark says parameterize the thing that's passed on the right side. Whatever. This is overkill. I just wanted to look at the data and see. Okay, so we got the subscription. We get the invoice items. Those invoice items have a price. The price has, yeah, this is, okay, so the price has the price ID. Okay, so for this fixed price one, we don't need to store the subscription item ID. We just need to store the price ID. So this is going to be, where is this? This is going to be buried inside of data. Okay, so let's just say that we found the event. Okay, so then we're going to say e.data data object. That gives us the object back. And then this is going to have items. And inside the items, we have a bunch of stuff. But what I was trying to do is determine whether or not we have all the information we need. And I think we actually do. So the reason I was pausing here was I wasn't sure if we needed to retrieve the subscription. Turns out we don't. So what we can do here is say event data object is going to be our subscription. And now we can say, in fact, if it's a Stripe event, Stripe event dot, oh gosh, Stripe Ruby has a method to construct the event from JSON. Oh, we can just say Stripe object, or yeah, let's say Stripe event dot construct from event data. So if it's a Stripe event, then we should be able to reconstruct the event from the JSON. The nice thing about that is we can use dot notation instead of all these square brackets everywhere, because it wraps it up for us nicely. And now we can say stuff like subscription.customer, and that should find the user for us. And now what we want to do is check to see if that user subscriptions dot find by Stripe subscription ID. If that's subscription.id, then like if one of these exists, then we want to, like, it's possible that some events come out of order. So it's possible that we already have this subscription. And if this is the case, then we want to return early. So we'll say return if sub dot exists. Otherwise, we want to actually create a subscription. So we're going to say user.subscriptions.create. And let's see, subscription. On the subscription model, we have belongs to user. But on the user model, we don't have the has many subscriptions. And a subscription is going to have the status, which will be subscription.status. It will have the fixed price ID, which we'll have to figure out how to find that. And it will have the Stripe subscription ID, which is going to be that. It'll have the usage price ID and the usage subscription item ID. Okay, so how do we figure those out? Well, we know that our subscriptions are always going to have 2 subscription items, but I don't think the order is guaranteed. So we're going to need to look into, what do we want to do? We want to look into the list of subscription items. So this is going to be something like, we want to find the fixed item and the usage item. The fixed item is going to be subscription.items.data.find. Yeah, and then I something. So let's play around with this. So subscription data item.find I, where I okay, so item price, let's see, here's the item, and inside the item we have this price, and if the price's usage type is licensed, that means that we're talking about the fixed price thing. So items.find I, where I price recurring usage type is licensed. Oh, items should have like data, I think. Okay, so that should give us back the fixed price one, and it does. So gosh, that's quite a mouthful, right? All right, so this is how we get at it though. So we're going to drop this in here, and then we'll take a look at it. So this is going to be items.data.find I.price.recurring.usage type is licensed. Okay. And then the other one is going to be metered. Okay, so if we change this to metered, this gives us the metered price, which is the amount is 7 cents. So that is right. Okay, now what we want to do is, okay, so we've got our fixed item, and we should be able to just say like, I at price ID. Yeah, okay. Fixed item.price.id, and then usage item.price.id. And then the usage item, we're just going to say usage item.id. That should give us the subscription item ID for the usage thing, which will allow us to report usage records. All right, let's call that good and see if it works. So we can find that event again. So just E. E is our event. So we know that it's event number 9. So let's exit, reload, and say E is event.find9. And now we can say handle event job.perform later E. And that should kick off processing for that job. Now if we look up E again, if we say like E.reload, that's going to refresh it from the database. And now we have this error. It says unknown Stripe event type. It didn't handle this event type. When also now this event should just be like event.data.type, or is it just event.type? No, I think it's just event.type now. Reload. E is event.find9. Handle event job perform later. E.reload. And then look at the status. And the status is some giant error. Did you mean handle subscription created? I probably did. Undefined method handle Stripe subscription created. Handle. Yeah, like we could namespace them all to say handle subscription created is different than handle Stripe subscription created, but whatever. So event.find9. I guess we want to reload and then run that. And then E.reload should give us undefined method exists for nil class. Okay, return if it's not nil. Okay, undefined method exists, but it says processed. So something that I noticed is if we update here and set some processing errors, then we retry it, then even if it gets updated to process, the processing errors are still there. So what we can do is we can clear those out here by saying processing errors is empty string. And that should be really good. Okay, so reload. Perform now, and now E.reload should not have any processing errors at the bottom. Great. It does not, and it's processed. So we should have subscription.count be equal to 1, subscription.last. Okay, cool. It has the fixed price ID, it has the usage-based price ID, and it has the usage subscription item. The status, though, of this subscription shows incomplete. Why is it incomplete? Did we not finish the whole flow? Okay, so let's refetch and see. Stripe subscription retrieve. And what is the status? The status is active. Okay, let's just re-retrieve it and use that instead of depending on what we got in the payload, because it might be incomplete temporarily. So here, I'm just going to say, let's retrieve subscription.retrieve. That'll give us like a proper brand new Stripe subscription. Okay, let's go through the whole flow. So we're going to log out. We're going to start a free trial, or no, we want to go through the pricing page, click on this button, get started today, start your free trial, test 6 at example.com. Okay, start your free trial. We are redirected to free Stripe checkout. Now we see our price for our tokens. Subscribe. Okay, now we should be handling these webhook event types as they come in. Okay, we've got a bunch of events coming in. Let's see, subscription.last is the second subscription, and the status is active, and we have all of our information here. Fantastic. Okay. Whew. All right, so now we're handling subscription created. That's great. All right, the next thing we're going to do is every time we spend money with the OpenAPI or the OpenAI API by creating suggestions or making calls to the completion API, we are going to start reporting usage records for every single one of those. So the way this works is inside of this, we have this model called a suggestion model. And in here, right now, I have this job called create a completion job. Create completion job takes in a suggestion and figures out how to create the suggestion. Maybe we're creating a tweet, or we're creating a blog post, or we're automatically generating a bunch of different stuff. So inside of this complete creation job, we have a bunch of stuff that it does. But one thing that we get back from the API is some number of completion tokens. And so what I want to do is, right after we hit the API to generate a suggestion, I want to then kick off another job that reports a usage record to Stripe for the number of tokens. So we're going to say the total tokens. So here I'm going to say, let's go make a new job, Rails G job. And this is going to be called like report usage. And we'll take a look at it in a second. So this is going to take in as an argument the suggestion. And this will create a usage record in Stripe for the number of tokens used. Okay, so this will be called from that completion, like at the end of the completion job here, I'm going to call report usage job.perform later and pass in this updated suggestion that will now have the total tokens. So this total tokens is how much we need to report the usage for. So here we can say something like, let's go to the API ref, stripe.com/docs API. Usage records create. So this is what we want to do. We want to create a usage record and pass some stuff in. So we are going to pass the quantity. That's going to be the number of tokens, and the action is going to be set. And then we're going to have some timestamp. Okay, so our timestamp is time.now.2i. Our quantity is going to be suggestion dot total tokens, and our subscription usage record, or our subscription ID, is going to be the subscription, like the metered subscription ID thing from our subscription usage subscription item ID. So how do we get this? So suggestion dot a YouTube video. Okay, so it belongs to a YouTube video, and a YouTube video belongs to a user. So a suggestion has one user through YouTube video. So suggestion.user. and then the user has many subscriptions. So we're going to say .subscriptions.last. And it's possible that a user ends up having multiple subscriptions for some reason, but if they had a subscription in the past and then they made a new one, it's most likely that the most recent one they created is the one that's active and not the old one. I'm just going to assume this is how it works. We should also probably check, does the user have an active subscription before we generate any usage records? But for now, this is fine. So we're going to say subscription is this thing. And now we can say subscription dot usage subscription item ID. And this should create the usage record. And this is like usage record is what's going to come back. What I want to do is actually update the suggestion with reference to the usage record so that I know that every single suggestion is being tied to a report of that usage back to Stripe so that I can like do a bunch of reconciliation with the billing. So now I'm going to go create Rails G migration, add usage record ID to suggestions. And that's going to be like the Stripe usage record. I'm being inconsistent, but let's see. Create usage. Okay, so this should be the Stripe usage record ID. Rails DB migrate. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the report usage job. And here we will update suggestion.update the Stripe usage record ID to the usage record.id. Now we should have we should be able to keep track when people are reporting usage. All right, let's see if this whole thing will work. Let's go spend some money. So we're going to come back in here. I'm going to log out and we're going to log back in. Oh, wait, I don't know. I don't think I have an active. Do I have an active subscription? Let's see. Shoot. Okay. User.find2. That's this one. .subscriptions. I don't have any subscriptions. Okay. So I need to go to /pricing and then click on get started today. And I can actually sign in, I think. And it should use my Stripe customer ID when I redirect. Let's see. Yes. Okay. And then I will enter in all of these details. Test card. Okay. Click subscribe. Now I have a subscription. Okay, great. So now if I go to sources, all right, I'll comment that out for now. And okay. All right, so we see our stuff. So I'm going to look at a video that I want to promote. So I'm going to open up this PubSub Hubbub one, and I'm going to say, think of a tweet. Okay, so that generated a new suggestion. So then back over here, Rails C. I don't have it automatically run right now because I want to prevent it firing off every single time I click that. So now what I can do is say suggestion.last.generate, and this should fire off the call to OpenAPI or OpenAI to generate a suggestion, and it should also go and charge me money. Whoops. Oops. Okay, yeah. So I kicked it off twice. Suggestion.last. Okay. And that failed. Why did that fail? Cannot create the usage record with this timestamp because the timestamps cannot be in the future. Expected a timestamp less than or equal to this. What? How are those different? Oh gosh, 165972332. What? Okay, so can I do, if I'm reporting a usage record, I think I can report like now, right? Usage record timestamp, yeah. So we'll just, yeah, report usage job, and the timestamp will just be not passed. Quantity, and the action is set. Okay, let's try this again. So I think I can actually just say report usage dot perform, or actually we want to reload. So report usage dot perform later suggestion dot last. Oh, boom, look at that. Okay, we've got a usage record. Cool. All right, so here on the dashboard, I went to customers, find the customer, and then go to their subscription. And under their subscription, we can see now that we reported the usage for those promo tokens at 7 cents a token, 328. So it wants to charge $22.96. But I think we actually just, like, this isn't 1,000 tokens, so we'll have to do some sort of math. And I think we can do some sort of transition thing. Okay, so on the price object, what we want to do is we actually want to, I think we want to divide the usage by 1,000. Okay, so I am going to create a new price from the API using the Stripe CLI. And let's see how this works. Okay, so we're going to create a new price, and the product is going to be this same product. So we're going to use the promo tokens product. Recurring interval is month. And we want to say recurring, I think. Okay, so the usage type, the recurring usage type is going to be metered. And then we want to have a transform quantity. Transform quantity divide by equals 1,000. And okay, so the unit amount is going to be 7 cents US dollars per month. Here's the product. The usage type is going to be metered. We're going to divide by 1,000. I think that might be it. No. Oh, and then we want to round. Do we want to round up or round down? So let's say we want to round up. All right. So let's use this as our new price inside of here. So checkouts controller. So we're going to set this as our price. Okay. So now let's go back through the entire flow. So I'm actually going to just go into Rails console and say subscription.destroy all. Okay, and then we'll go back over here and go to /pricing. We're still logged in. We click on Get Started Today. We are redirected to checkout. So now, here we go. Okay, great. Okay, so now we see 7 cents for every 1,000. This is fantastic. Okay, this is exactly what we want. So now we're going to subscribe again. And okay, comes back. Now we should have subscription.count. We should have one subscription, and we do. Now if I go to my sources, or let's just go straight to videos. I view the video, I say think of a tweet, and then I say suggestion.last. Okay, that doesn't have anything. We'll say s.generate, bang, s.reload, And that's going to take a little while to actually go do its thing. Okay, fantastic. And now we have a Stripe usage record. So that usage record was reported back for the same customer. So we'll go back, we'll find our customer. Now we have 2 subscriptions, but this one is just, right, we reported 328 tokens and the unit price is 7 cents. So I think let's just play around with this for a second and say, we'll take that last suggestion and we'll say Stripe usage record is equal to nil. And then we will, let's see, report usage record, or report usage job.perform later for the suggestion. So we'll rerun it, s.reload, and now we have another usage record. So we should have 2 usage records in here. And when we add them up, it does not equal 1,000 yet, right? All right, so we're retrieving the test clock. We can tell, okay, so the frozen time, this is what's throwing me off, is that we're using test clocks. So those are not going to work with this pattern because we want to be able to just use time.now.2i. But on our user model, we set up this test clock, which is actually making it worse than it needs to be. So I'm going to try to delete. Okay. So that should have deleted the test clock, but it should have also deleted the customer. So now I have to say user.find2 and then u.stripe customer ID is nil, u.save, and that should run. All right, go to pricing, come down here, get started, go through the checkout flow. Subscribe. All right, now we're redirected back. S is suggestion.last. S.update Stripe usage record ID to nil. All right, and then also we need to check and see if this customer that we just, this new customer we created, okay, good. It does not have a test clock. All right, now let's see if we can get this subscription to actually report. So S or report usage job.perform later S or suggestion.last and suggestion.last. Okay, we have a new usage record here, so let's go look at our subscription, view usage. Okay, so we've got some usage there. Now, what we can do is wait a second and then report it again. And I think we should now have more, right? Okay, good. Oh, okay, cool. So now we have 656, but we're still just charging 7 cents. All right, now let's say that we report it again and again and again, and a few seconds later we report it again. And now if we come over here, let's see, fantastic. Okay, so now we have almost 2,000 tokens. We're charging 7 cents per 1,000 tokens, so we're gonna charge 14 cents. So now if we run it one last time, now we should see that we're charging 21 cents. Refresh. Ah, nice, now we're charging 21 cents. So I think we might actually, in retrospect, I might actually want to use round down as part of the transform, but going back through and just explaining, okay, so explaining what happened. The test clock using test clocks with metered billing is not something that I had tested before or used before. And it turns out that it makes it more challenging to test because your test clock makes it so that when you report usage records, those, if they use the now argument, those are going to be pinned to the time that the test clock was frozen to. So if you're not transitioning your test clock forward every time you're reporting your usage, then it's going to have the same time. But we want to report it and have it pinned to a specific time, which right now we're able to do and confirm that this works and shows all of our different usages. So now if I was to actually like go through here and say, okay, I want to go to my videos and I want to generate a new tweet that is related to this video. And then if I say suggestion.last, that'll give me the suggestion that I just created. And I can say suggestion.last.generate. And obviously, like in practice, eventually I want this to show, oh, also this is using turbo streams, which is pretty cool. So I don't have to like refresh the page or anything. But yeah, webhooks from the YouTube API are called PubSub, Hubbub, or the new name for this is WebSub. Here's a tutorial how to set it up. Boom, link out to the YouTube video that was about this. But now we should be able to go over here and see that our usage has increased. So if we refresh this, it was 2296 and now it is 2932. Cool. So if we again come over here and if we were to say, okay, think of a YouTube description, and then we generate that last thing, then in our YouTube descriptions, we should have, well, we'll have one more YouTube description, but that's going to push us over the limit here into our next 1,000. So now it should be charging us 28 cents. If we refresh, come back down here, and now it's at 28 cents. Okay, great. So I think all this works. The other thing that is on my mind is that I kind of want to prevent people from going, like I want people to be able to like set up thresholds so they don't overspend themselves. So I think that'll be something we do in another episode. This was a really long one, but we covered a ton of stuff about metered billing, and I had never actually gone through the process of setting this up in this way. Obviously, I've never done it with test clocks. So this was a fun exercise. Hopefully you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Thank you so much for sticking around. Hopefully this was useful, and otherwise we'll see you in the next one where I think we're going to talk about how to limit your top billing. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.